I grew tired of the same. Then one night, packed my things, told the one I love I'll be back one day. Through the fight, through the pain, booked a flight, took a plane, told her not to cry. I'll be back.
Yeah, what's up? It's your boy ADM, and this is my review of Fede Alvarez's Don't Breathe. Now, as for a quick rundown, Don't Breathe follows the story of three teenage burglars who find themselves in a blind war veteran's house after learning he received a huge cash settlement following his only daughter's death. The veteran has a secret, however, and the teenagers must fight for their lives to escape from the secluded household. Now, the question is whether this film lived up to critical expectation. Let's start with the positives here. For one, the cinematography was gorgeous. Absolutely captivating and, interestingly enough, incredibly refreshing as well. Fede Alvarez actually gave us something here with incredibly smooth rounding shots. And a major example of this is the scene in the basement. You see here, two of the three teenagers manage to find their way down, only for Stephen Lang to cut off the power after preceding events. Now, as we know, a blind person's senses increases exponentially, and they have a huge advantage in the dark. And this is where you could really feel the realism with all the pacing and curving of the shots. Honestly, it's something I've never seen in a horror film before, but it was beautiful yet confusing to witness. And I'm sure a lot of people have said this already, but of course it was very noticeable, and I think it was one of the more powerful moments of the film. There was a scene where the blind man shoots his gun directly next to the lead actress's head. Now, the reason this is so interesting is because in Hollywood especially, when a gun is fired, you can just tell that it's fake. It's really not appealing and you can't get anything from it. But with the way that they effectuated it in this, wow. It was almost as if when I saw it in the cinema and it went off, quite a few people genuinely jumped and even held their ears. It was that loud and that powerful. To be honest with you, I'd like to see more of that in horror films. Another thing as well, there was no jump scares. That I really liked as well, because I feel like horror films these days tend to rely on jump scares too much to try and get their audience involved, but they really didn't need to use it here, and they did a fantastic job without using it. A lot of it was just smooth, continuous, rounded shots, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. If anything, it added a lot more effect than a jump scare would have. Another thing was the audio and the soundtrack. Now, you heard some of the actual soundtrack at the beginning of the video there, and what I like about it is they effectuated it nicely, and they didn't use something that tends to be too deep of a sound in horror films, except they kept it simple, but very, very eerie at the same time. Now, the actors. I'm a little bit mixed here, but I'll go on with the positives first anyway. Jane Levy herself delivered what I think was quite a solid performance. I mean, she's very, very good at using expression to showcase emotion. I mean, there were particular moments in the film where you could see the emotion and the fear just with her eyes. And yeah, I'd have to give her a solid 7.5 out of 10 for her performance. It was a really, really good job. Ooh, now the big man, the main man, Stephen Lang. I cannot fault his performance whatsoever. He really, really, really paid off the blind character. It was incredibly believable. And there was one interesting thing. He barely spoke throughout the film. If anything, a lot of it was just either grunting or one word. But oh boy, when he did speak, you could feel the power of his voice literally entering your soul. I'd have to give him a 10 out of 10 for that performance. No problem. Now it's time for what I didn't like about the film. Let's start with where we left off. Once again, the actors. Like I spoke about Jane Levy and Stephen Lang, I thought those two were brilliant. As for the other two guys, I don't know if it was me personally, but I was struggling to want to get into their character, to want to like their characters, to want to understand their characters. I just couldn't get into it. Another thing which threw me off quite a bit, Alex. Alex would not die. This is why I was so confused, and this is what left me a tiny bit skeptical. There were moments in this film where any normal human being would have been killed there and then. I mean, obviously, for those of you that have seen the film, you know that he eventually dies, but it's that build-up to him dying. I mean, I assume what the director was trying to go for there was trying to make him look heroic, etc., making us believe that he was going to be the one to survive. But like I said, maybe it's because personally I just couldn't get into this character, so I just didn't find that performance believable whatsoever. It actually got to a point for me when I just said to myself, okay, when is this guy just gonna die? Because there were times, I mean, the guy was punched, stabbed, fell through a window, a whole manner of things. And it's not just him, it happened to the other characters as well, but not as severe as in his case. And I think that's one thing that put me off quite a bit, because this immortality factor doesn't really work for me. It completely takes common sense out of the window, and it just isn't appealing and just can't get you into the character. Not to mention, after seeing the film now, I can confidently tell you that the Red Band trailer pretty much gave everything away. It basically just spoils the whole film. Another thing, and I'm sure a lot of people have spoke about this, but I feel it needs to be mentioned again because I do not understand what the final decision was here. There was a fantastic line in the trailer. Stephen Lang says, and I quote, "Now you see what I see." That is such a powerful line, and especially once you guys, or if you guys have actually seen the scene that I'm talking about, that I touched on earlier, the scene in the basement where he cuts off the electricity, you'll understand why. I'm struggling to understand why they left that out of the film. It's one of those things where that line on its own could have made the whole movie. And of course, the major cliche. Something that happens in pretty much every horror movie, but they really, really went over the bridge with this one. Wow. Jane Levy runs away from the house. You think to yourself, okay, she's finally free. Yes, brilliant, she made it. She turns around and she opens her mouth to speak. Now, this cliche has been so overdone. And it gets to a point where a lot of us just really find it stupid because we say to ourselves, oh great, okay, she's escaped the house, but obviously that's not the end. She's going to do something stupid and the lead character, the guy chasing her, is going to come back after her. And that's exactly the case. And here's another thing. I kind of touched on this another part of the video. And I find this particularly quite baffling. the last 20-30 minutes of the film were very, very confusing and somewhat exhausting after experiencing everything we did in the first part of the film. It feels like they didn't really know what direction they wanted to go in with the movie. Because once again, there was a moment in the trailer where you see the old man and his dog following the little girl, following Jane Levy and her little sister. That was not in the film, which I thought again was disappointing because I think that would have been a much, much, much better ending, especially if they were thinking to do a sequel. But like I said, I believe they just really didn't know what they wanted to accomplish with the film. And once again, I don't know what happened with the final decision and why they decided to leave that out. Overall, I'd say I'm not too sure about my opinion on this film. I think it's one of those situations where you have to watch it multiple times to have a full opinion. Because, I mean, the cinematography was a huge breath of fresh air for the horror genre, but I'm not sure yet whether I can call this a true horror film. I mean, there were some very, very inspiring moments, but also some moments that they could have effectuated a lot better. But I'd say overall, I'd give the film a 6 out of 10. This has been your boy ADM, and if you enjoyed my review, please leave a like and subscribe because there'll be more content like this coming out. Also, what did you guys think about the film? Leave a comment down in the description, and I am signing out. Peace.
I grew tired of the same, then one night, packed my things, told the one I love I'll be back one day. Through the fight, through the pain, booked a flight, took a plane, told her not to cry. I'll be back.